another episode of What's Working with Cam Marston, brought to you by Coastal Alabama Community College. Our focus, workplace, workforce trends. It's the subject we've been studying on this show now for well over 80 episodes, which is surprising to say. Looking for people who have interesting insights into the workplace and the workforce that can tell us stories about what's going on, what's kind of unique in their workplace and their workforce. And as I sit here today, we in the Deep South are finally getting our first sniff, our first little hint of fall. It's delightful. We've paid our dues this past summer, folks. It's been hotter, and I think perhaps we say that every summer, but it's been hotter than we can ever remember. It's been brutal, whether it's global warming, whether the Earth has moved closer to the sun, whether it's the hole in the ozone, I don't know. But it's been brutal. There's a handful of friends of mine that we get together every late summer to celebrate the close of summer. We call it the death of summer. And we get together and perhaps we get in costume, don't want to say all too much about that, and go out and celebrate the end of summer and begin to welcome the fall. This past year, we did something different with this same crowd of people, and all got aboard a boat and cruised across Mobile Bay and up the ship channel. And the reason this is important or salient to this show or this conversation is that as we cruised up the ship channel, it became very clear that there was an extraordinary amount of commerce going on as the cranes, and I wish I had a better term for them, but the huge cranes were lifting the container off the ship, placing it down on the land, and then continuously over and over and over in unloading these ships. Apparently, there's a Mobile, as we've always known, as a port, but it's becoming a more and more influential port. And based on the volume of the ships that I saw and the number of containers, this work continues to get more important for our part of the country. It's the import-export business, sending stuff abroad and taking it in, and exactly the logistics for all that have got to be demanding and just overwhelming, because from the waterfront in downtown Mobile, they go on trucks or they go on trains to all different parts of the country. And while one load is going out, another is going in to hopefully get back on that ship and take it back to wherever it is across the world. And we see this stuff going on in our port all the time. If you're downtown Mobile or driving over the bridge or driving over the bay, or in my case, you're out fishing by Farewell Buoy and you see these ships sitting out in the Gulf, waiting their turn to get in to unload and reload and go out. Well, my question is, what goes on in all that? What does it take? How far has this material come, and how far is it going? Who manages all this type of stuff? And as importantly to me, curiously, how do you bill for that type of thing? How do you figure out what an import costs? Is it based on weight? Is it based on the value of the item in the container? Is it based on the distance that it's traveled? I'm also very curious of who owns this material as it crosses the ocean. Does the manufacturer own it? Does the purchaser on the other end own it? Or is there a temporary claim of ownership to the people who are helping transmit it? So if this ship goes down, as we saw off the coast of Georgia this past summer, in the middle of the summer, who's responsible for that? Who loses the material? So it's an extraordinary amount of product moving back and forth. It gets off the ships and it goes elsewhere. We're going to learn about that. Who does it, how they do it, and how that business works. We'll begin this conversation with Bill Kraus when we get back. You're listening to What's Working with Cam Marston, brought to you by Coastal Alabama Community College. We'll be right back after these messages and talk with Bill Kraus of Page & Jones.
Think about how people really see you. The kid at the drive-thru just sees a coffee drinker.
Please pull forward.
Your local barista sees the person who loves a smiley face in their latte.
See you next time.
It's kind of the same way with insurance. Other insurance companies just see a customer, but a State Farm agent sees more. They see you as a neighbor. Your State Farm agent is here to get to know who you really are, so they can help life go right.
Call me, State Farm agent Allison Horner, in Mobile at 666-1616.
Hey, this is Cam Marston. If sales in your business comes from prospecting to create leads that lead to sales, I want to tell you about Sales Up Coach, a cloud-based system created for the next generation of sales professional. There's a big difference between being busy and being effective. And Sales Up Coach helps salespeople who rely on prospecting Uncover which of their activities produce the greatest results. Over time, Sales Up Coach's machine learning hones salespeople's schedule to focus only on activities that generate the most bang for the buck. Your sales team interacts with Sales Up Coach on their smartphone, and sales managers can instantly generate reports to see who is on goal and who may need additional support. Go online and take a look at this new and very powerful sales tool. Go to salesupcoach.com/Cam Marston. Watch your sales team's productivity change.
Is your business growing? Does your existing metal building need an update? Expansion? New roof? With almost 20 years of experience, Mosley Building Systems is the leading metal building contractor along the Gulf Coast. We are your local design-build experts. From expansion to new construction or repairs, we can guide you through all aspects of your project. Mosley Building Systems works with each client to fulfill their vision. For more information, go to mosleybuildingsystems.com.
We're back. You're listening to What's Working with Cam Marston, brought to you by Coastal Alabama Community College. We're always grateful for Coastal Alabama Community College's support. On the line with me is Bill Kraus. Bill works for Page & Jones, which I'm eager to hear, Bill, about the family company that this is, importing and exporting the containers that roll into our port as well as ports across the Southeast. His firm has a finger on many of them and eager to learn exactly how this business works, where this stuff comes from, where it goes to. And in my mind's eye, I see heaps of paperwork for all this type of stuff. Bill, thank you for your time. Welcome to What's Working.
Thank you, Cam, for having me.
Well, when I read from your website, international logistics, it sounds daunting. It sounds like this is an elite organization that most people aren't going to be able to understand. International logistics. Tell me exactly, in layman's terms, what it is that you guys do.
Well, and when we're dealing with our clients, maybe a new client, maybe even new to the industry, to shipping in general, it can be daunting. And, but that's usually if there's no planning or little planning involved. So, the definition of international logistics being the process of planning and managing the flow of goods and products in the supply chain from the point of purchase to the point of delivery, where part of the process involves crossing at least one international border. Right out of the dictionary. So, what we try to do, not convince, but assure our clients that, look, it is daunting when you think of it being an international field. We try to shrink it down. So if this was left to a seller, let's suppose it's a seller U.S. and a buyer overseas, and if it was left to them to negotiate and navigate this on their own, it can be very expensive because, the phrase time is money, it applies to a lot of businesses. Well, in logistics, delays not only stall the production or postpone getting finished product to the marketplace, but it can further be punishing to the parties involved if there is storage or demurrage and detention charges. And these costs can be exponential. So, the ultimate goal here is to not just move the cargo from point A to point B, but to make sure that it doesn't stall anywhere, along the way in that supply chain.
What does demurrage mean? What do you? I say, sorry to interrupt you. What is demurrage?
Yeah, so detention and demurrage are phrases, or they are storage, and demurrage would be a charge that the port facilities have to assess. Because you mentioned containers, so most of what comes in and out of the U.S. does come in containers. So these containers come in, they discharge from the vessel, and maybe they sit at the port. They have a window of time in which they can sit for free, and it exceeds that time, let's say 5 days. Every day after, it's what they call demurrage, and it's an exponential graph there in which the charges get more expensive each day. So, And why would something stop in the port? It could be because maybe the paperwork wasn't right and it didn't clear through customs on time, or some other governmental agency had an issue with it. Maybe it had to be examined, and due to that, it caused a delay. And again, that's kind of where we're third-party logistics providers. That's where we prove our worth. And so what we operate, Page & Jones is an international freight forwarder. We're licensed and regulated by the FMC. We're a customs house broker. We're licensed and permitted by the U.S. Customs and Border Protection. And in this capacity, we're working on behalf of the importers and exporters. So when we were talking before about, a particular importer, let's say they're bringing something in, and it might be, let's say it's not a finished product, but instead it's a production item. It's a raw material or a component, and the consequence, of them not receiving that in time to get to their assembly line, that's a whole nother realm of cost. So by comparison, I think what we try to, the metaphor I guess for us is we're like a travel agent for cargo. We don't own and we don't operate the equipment like the trucks or the warehouse or the vessels, but we're involved in every aspect of that to make sure we handle all of those arrangements according to the need of the client.
Let's assume that I'm a manufacturer and right. I am getting a component of what I need to manufacture from overseas, and I'm just randomly picking a place. There's some place in Italy, they make a wonderful, beautiful product. I need this product to be included in my finished product, so I import them. How many different vendors have hands on this process? You mentioned your work, but there's also a shipper and perhaps a ground shipper. There's a water right. shipper, an overseas shipper. Is there right. 3 people that are touching my product along the way, or is there a dozen that are somehow involved in getting my product to me from Italy?
That's a great question. It immediately pops into mind a scenario we had probably about 10 years ago. And so this would be an example of the extreme. And it would be in the realm, it would be in project cargo. So again, we're outside of containers. We're in this is not standardized, this is the unconventional stuff. So there was an Alabama, it was an international company building a facility, brand new facility in Alabama. And during that time, they, as they were designing the facility, everything was state of the art, and they bought and designed everything and sourced it, in I think mostly in Europe and then some in Asia. So at the time, we were just working with them as a customs broker, handling those shipments as they came into the U.S. And just doing the clearance. So really not involved in logistics. But then we get this urgent phone call, and they said that their logistics service provider in Italy had given them some astronomical last-minute freight cost estimates, and it was on moving 8 very large sand filter tanks. That's nothing too sexy, but these things were very large. And they were built somewhere in northern Italy near the Switzerland border. Mm-hmm. And as winter was approaching, there was a fear that they weren't going to be able to get them out of there until the following spring. And of course, this was a major problem because this facility being built in the U.S. and Alabama they couldn't afford that. And additionally, the route between the manufacturer's facility and the shipping port in Italy was real hilly, and it was through several small villages. So there were all kinds of challenges. It kind of, I look back and I thought, well, did they not put all that into thought when they made this purchase? And these things, these tanks, they could have been built probably anywhere else, but they chose these. And so anyway, there was no going back. So they bring us in, we got involved, we reviewed everything. and we put all the cost estimates together, and we made the determination that we could complete the project for about, believe it or not, $1 million less than what they were quoted. And this is just in, transportation.
$1 million less.
Right, just in freight.
Now, when you see a big difference like that in your calculation and their other estimate, do you have to wonder to yourself, did I miss something here?
Yeah, very much so. And, and that is the risk reward of project cargo. It's really high, really high risk that you have overlooked something or that something can go wrong. But the reward, of course, when you hit it all together, and it does, and it's spot on, then, the reward is so worth it. But yes, absolutely. And it's so much planning.
Bill, I want to hear the end of this story. I want to know how many different hands were on it and what you guys did. This is interesting to me to see what it is you do, but we got to take our first break. Folks, you're listening to What's Working with Cam Marston. This is brought to you by Coastal Alabama Community College. I'm on with Bill Kraus, Paige and Jones. Giving us a scenario, Bill, is of exactly what kind of work it is that they do. We see the containers moving around downtown on the water. Let's hear what goes into getting those containers from place to place. We'll be right back with Bill. Paige and Jones is likely defined by our federal government as a small business based on their number of employees. Coastal Alabama Community College offers a small business and entrepreneurship program for those wishing to get into a business of their own. It includes the principles of management, supervision, accounting, and small business development skills, how to sell, how to make your product or service valuable for that customer. Designed to help prepare individuals for management of small businesses, it's a 4-semester program that will get students directly into the labor market upon completion. It includes personal finance, business communication, customer service, etc. All good things. Visit the website at coastalalabama.edu for more information.
The Community Foundation of South Alabama links donors to philanthropy, builds networks across 8 counties, and builds dreams for those in need. Through our donors' gifts, we make investments that enhance our community via initiatives with broad impact. Working with you, we build communities. Contact us at communityfoundationsa.org.
This is Coastal Alabama Community College, where education is key and where there is opportunity in every classroom. We serve 9 counties with one common goal. Here, we come together to create a brighter future. Together, we inspire. Together, we learn. Together, we succeed. This is Coastal Alabama Community College. All together.
I'm Matt Armbruster with Ransom Ministries. We help people in our community that most others have given up on. Please donate your unwanted electronics to Ransom Recycling. We teach life skills, job readiness, and job creation through our electronic recycling program. We take anything with a cord. Find us at ransomministries.com, or you can call us at 251-751-0044.
I'm on the line with Bill Kraus. Bill is with Paige and Jones here in Mobile, international exporter, importer. Giving us a scenario, Bill, of, I think you said sand tanks of some sort manufactured in northern Italy. And the bid that you guys placed to get them to Alabama was $1 million less than the other guy. Let's keep this story going. I'm curious what happened.
Right. So these were, they're sand filter tanks. There were about 8 of them. And what we've done over the years, we've had to do this, is that we've kind of built a network of partners worldwide. So it took probably over the last 30 years. So specifically in Italy and in Germany, we have some very strong partners. They'd be similar in size to Paige and Jones, offer kind of a mirror image of the services that we provide. And so we reached out to our partners over there, and we we got down. In fact, I think there was one individual for the company back then, was the project manager of it. He went over there, and the team put together the plan. They had to coordinate with the local governments in each of these villages to get clearance permits. They had to do the escorts and all that. So they had to only transport at night. They had to take down and reinstall traffic lights. I think they had to do some reinforcement on some bridges. They basically had to leave everything as good or better than they found it, or at least pay for any damages. And again, that's the part of the Project Cargo being the risk reward. It's unconventional. It's very little of it is standardized. So when you asked earlier about the number of parties, we've got an agent over there that's kind of the conductor, but he is hiring the crew that's going to do the loading on these special trailers. And then the securing, and of course you get the transporters and you got the escorts getting it down to the port. Once it arrives at the port, we're now dealing with another crew handling the unloading and turning it over to the vessel operator and the stevedores to load on the ship. Of course, we coordinated the rates and negotiated the ship, the actual vessel rate. It was, I believe, going out of the port of Genoa and coming to the port of Mobile. So we put all that together. It arrives in Mobile ahead of schedule, and it's the same thing again. We've got now another crew that's handling the special unloading of it and loading them on these like 16 axle specialized trailers that you have to actually find them. There's only a limited number of them in the U.S. You have to source them and make sure that they're contracted just for this job. So it was, I don't know how many parties were involved, but at the end of the day, it was an awful lot of a lot of coordination.
So
go ahead.
This is an exceptional case. This is obviously not typical. Do these types of things whet your appetite, or do you see something like this and you say, oh gosh, not another one of those, even though we could save the client $1 million, just not another one of those? What do you think about these types of gigs?
There is a point you recognize maybe that it's outside of your scope or your, the strength of what you've got. When we first were contacted about, and we've been contacted by parties in other types of projects, and I just, we recognize it's not for us. There are too many pitfalls, too many red flags, and we walk away. But no, I would say that the answer to that is we love Project Cargo. If it's within our scope, it's a challenge. It's fascinating, I think, and of course, the margins. There's an opportunity to make some money on it too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you earn it. You definitely earn it, but it's a lucrative opportunity.
I suspect that there's a network of people like you across the country, across the world, where they know they can call on you to get something exceptional like this done. And similarly, you have a network, a Rolodex. There are people out there who have no idea what that is these days, but a Rolodex of people that you can call. They'll take your call, and they know you're a trustworthy, honest, hardworking organization. And for that reason, I'm suspecting that longevity in the business is a great benefit to an organization like you because your network is so big and solid and trusted. Your company has been in business since 1892, according to the website. That's got to be one of the distinguishing characteristics. That's got to be one of the things your clients buy is your history and your network. Is that the case?
Yeah, it's a great source of pride knowing that the company can trace its origin that far back. I mean, it's 127 years in business. I personally just wish we had more records that go back to those earliest of days. The current ownership is and traces its generations back to the late 40s, and beyond that, their history pieces are a little bit more fragmented. We have the building in which we operate downtown It's an old building. I think it's maybe just a few years younger than the company. But we've been in this building since the late 70s. And there are a lot of the photos and clippings and artifacts that date back to the company, back to the early 1900s, but not nearly enough.
Yeah.
But occasionally I stumble on some new information that happened to us about a month ago. A museum over in New Orleans reached out to us, one of the board members, tracing a vessel that we actually purchased from a shipyard there back in I think it was 1918. So this would have been for World War I, and the record showed that that vessel was purchased by Page and Jones and delivered. And then I guess we actually did operate I think 5 or 7 vessels for the U.S. Shipping Commission. For the war, for the transport of troops, and as part of the precursor to the Merchant Marines.
Yeah,
so
interesting.
It was really cool to hear that.
Yeah,
because that's something I didn't know. But again, we look around and I'll see pictures of ships and things, and these are all little fragmented parts of our history. So it is fascinating.
One of the things that you mentioned early on is that by definition, what you do is you bring goods over the border. Does it get more complex? You used an example a moment ago of getting something from Italy through Italy and the logistics of going through the towns. But what if it had gone from Italy through France to the French coast and been shipped over there? Does it become infinitely more complex when this item is crossing multiple international borders?
That probably for Italy and France being a part of the EU now, at one time, yes. And so if we use a different example, because the EU, it's a little freer to transport over different borders. But in another case, let's say it is somewhere in Southeast Asia or South America. Yeah, it can be. Most of these countries have instruments that allow you to move them via their country without actually entering technically into their commerce. So the process is, there's still some formalities, some paperwork, or some data that has to be transmitted to satisfy that. But for the most part, that's standard, so they know that something that's coming through that's not intended for their country, they have the ability to move it.
Do these ports, example, when I land, every airport that I land in gets a piece of the airline fee that I've paid. It's a landing charge. You don't ever see it on your ticket, but the airline pays the airport for me to be in that airport. Does every port that a product or a container go through want a piece of that action as well?
Yes, they do. It might be minimal in comparison to the actual freight charges, but yes, there usually is a fee. It's sometimes it can be a percentage. Sometimes it's just a flat fee.
And is that part of your responsibility, is to total that and to pay that, or is that someone else's job?
Certainly, and part of that is what we call terms of sale or international commercial terms. The hyphenated, what we call is Incoterms. So INCOTERMS.
Yeah.
These are like there are about 14 of them, 12 or 14 of them, and what they've done there, the International Chamber of Commerce put this together to allow, on a global scale, parties, buyers and sellers in different countries to understand, if everybody's citing these terms in their negotiations, that lays out the definition, or it defines who is responsible for what parts of that move. So in some cases, if I'm a seller, and I'm looking at selling it to an overseas buyer, and I say, look, I don't want to do anything other than just sell my product, and I leave it all up to the buyer. Well, now the buyer's got the price. He or she's got to reach out to the U.S., figure out how to coordinate all that and all those costs. They're going to bear all those costs. Me, the seller, you're just going to pay me for my goods as they sit on my dock. Then there's the other extreme in which I sell it, and I say, look, I'm going to do you a favor. I'm going to sell it all the way delivered to your door, including all your foreign charges and customs clearance and all that. And here's that complete delivered price. And then between those two extremes, that line, there's the middle ground. So there's plenty of terms there where they share somewhere further into the middle of that transit.
Who are your competitors? Is it a different way of moving things? Are they similar companies as yours? Is a competitor, who would you define as your competitor?
Yeah, I think the answer to that would have been a lot simpler maybe 20 or 30 years ago, maybe further than that. I think now international logistics providers, they're everywhere. And so I think our competitors, they're local, they're regional, they're nationwide, they're worldwide. And, again, because my clients' terms of sale may have me fully involved all the way to the destination, or may only have me involved in one little aspect of it. My competition, would be on the big scale would be companies like I won't name the names, but like UPS and FedEx. They offer these services, and then down to companies like Page and Jones. Again, 30, 40 years ago, my competition was more just companies like Page and Jones, but the arena is much bigger than it was. But the good thing is that there's a lot more of it, a lot more business in general. We're on this global, marketplace. So, and with e-commerce and the ability of the power of the buyer to buy and source anywhere at the touch of their, the keystroke,
Let's pick that up when we come back. We got to go to the next break, and I want to talk about the trade war and how it may be impacting your company and what you're seeing from that, if it's hit you, if your lifestyle has changed from the trade war. We'll pick that up when we come back. You're listening to What's Working with Cam Marston, brought to you by Coastal Alabama Community College.
Think about your home. What do you see? Do you just see two stories or the stories of your toddler's first steps? Now think about your car. Do you see an odometer reading or your kids reading in the back seat? Other insurance companies just see a house. They just see a car. But a State Farm agent sees what your home and your car really mean to you. So why not give them the protection they deserve?
You can reach me, State Farm agent Allison Horner, at AllisonHorner.com.
The Community Foundation of South Alabama links donors to philanthropy, builds networks across 8 counties, and builds dreams for those in need. Through our donors' gifts, we make investments that enhance our community via initiatives with broad impact. Working with you, we build communities. Contact us at communityfoundationsa.org.
You need some college in your life. Get trained to repair and maintain aircrafts at Coastal Alabama Community College's Aviation Center in Mobile and Fairhope. Get your career off the ground and sign up for classes today. Learn more at coastalalabama.edu, Alabama's lowest tuition.
I'm Matt Armbruster with Ransom Ministries. We help people in our community that most others have given up on. Please donate your unwanted electronics to Ransom Recycling. We teach life skills, job readiness, and job creation through our electronic recycling program. We take anything with a cord. Find us at ransomministries.com, or you can call us at 251-751-0044.
This is Cam Marston. You're listening to What's Working. We're brought to you by Coastal Alabama Community College. On the line with me is Bill Kraus with Page & Jones. Page & Jones is an importer-exporter. George Costanza paved the way. I think Bill watched that show and wanted to become just like George, and of a certain age, you'll get that reference. Bill, tell me about the Trump trade war and how it has impacted your business. Are you living out of a shoebox or anything like that these days?
No, I'm not. But it is. We're all aware of it, and it has begun to show its signs. This goes back, I guess, for all of us a little over a year ago with the implementation of tariffs and quotas on goods, certain types of goods. So steel and aluminum was that first wave of change in international trade, and it was a large scale approach, but it was because it was restricted to those commodities. The change was minor in what we saw in terms of the business pattern of our clients. But when that focus changed to China and these 4 levels of tariff of products and tariffs, that's when we definitely began to see the effects. I think the fourth quarter, so the last quarter of 2018, we actually saw a flurry of import business. I mean, it was like a record, but it was, I think, a sign that these importers were trying to hurry up and get as much as they could while still in that level 1 or level 2 of the tariffs. So they're trying to beat deadlines. But between, I think we started to see it carry over, though, further into the first quarter of this year. And now it's as we get closer to the fourth quarter of 2019, we're definitely seeing a bit of a slowdown specifically on imports from China.
I saw an economist speak at a conference last week who suggested that much of the manufacturing that the U.S. has relied on from China has moved to other Southeast Asian nations, and there will be a dip. But instead of seeing product coming in from China, you're going to see that same product now coming in from Vietnam. Is that what you're predicting?
Absolutely. I've got one particular client who saw this. They saw this writing on the wall early enough, and they began quickly changing their sourcing. They had their designers and all that shifting everything over to these factories in Vietnam specifically, and they are now, I think, 100% out of China.
Wow.
That particular client. Yeah. Not all of them have been able to do that, unfortunately, but yes.
Let me ask you this: who do you call on when you're selling? When someone on your team is selling, are they calling on manufacturers? Or are they calling on people downstream from the manufacturers who engage your service?
We try to stay very in tune with what's happening in economic development within, let's say, locally here with the Mobile Chamber of Commerce, or maybe at a state level or regional. Our outport offices are good sources of information. They got their ear to the ground and know what's going on locally there. We're looking for those announcements where a new constructed, a company is locating in our area, and we know that probably there's going to be some bit of importation for the construction of that facility. So, before they've even begun manufacturing their widgets, they're probably importing equipment.
Yeah.
So it's an opportunity there. We look at what that company is. What industry are they? Are they a supplier, a tier 1, tier 2 supplier to another local or regional manufacturer? So we know that maybe they've got imports of finished product or parts that will be further down the supply chain. So, and then we get the phone call from the small mom and pop that said, "Boy, am I in trouble! I had a business opportunity. I ordered a container of stuff from wherever, and I didn't know that I had to have a broker.
Yeah.
And now it's stuck at the port, in New Orleans. Can you help me?"
Yeah.
So, we like the rest of everybody's, we do what we can to stay aware of what's going on in our area. Those are great sources of leads, but opportunities come from everywhere.
So the new ship channel that they're proposing for the Port of Mobile, I assume that means more work for you, huh? Bigger ships, more cargo.
Yeah, so we've got a opportunity here with going to, I think, 50 feet depth on the ship channel, and I think widening to 100 feet in certain portions of this channel, which for Mobile, this is all we know is financed through the 10-cent increase in the gas tax. So Mobile is definitely going to benefit from this. I think what you're going to see now is the ability for the larger vessels to come into Mobile, as well as because that widening of the channel is going to allow for two-way traffic in certain parts of the channel. So it'll be very interesting to see what new carriers come and what new trade lanes that opens up to Mobile.
Yeah.
I think for us, the business that we do, not all of it is pertains to Mobile. We're not. It's changed. So where we once did have to be local, we were in Mobile. We handled only Mobile cargo. The laws, the regulations with customs change allow us to handle now things remotely. So we handle a lot of cargo that comes into the West Coast, comes to the East Coast. We really don't discriminate in where it comes in or leaves. We'd obviously like to see Mobile as being our home port to succeed, to grow off of this opportunity, and it will. And we're excited about what it brings, the potential it brings.
So you've got offices, according to the website, in 9 different locations. A couple of them are inland, which surprises me. For example, Dallas-Fort Worth, Jackson, Mississippi, Atlanta. What services do you have offices there that coordinate with the shippers on the coast, or are you taking and receiving equipment there through perhaps an airport facility?
Yeah, in some cases that's true. It is unique. Going back to I think maybe the early 70s, the changes, these inland points opened up for us when U.S. Customs opened offices in those places. So, believe it or not, there's a U.S. Customs office in Huntsville, Alabama. There's one in Birmingham. I think Birmingham was the first branch office that we opened outside of Mobile, and then shortly after it was, I think, it was Huntsville. So the reason they opened these offices was to relieve some of the congestion that was at these points of entry. So if everything that came into the port of Mobile had to clear customs in Mobile only, it created a bottleneck. So these inland points, customs opened those facilities. And you mentioned before, we were talking about the ability of moving cargo across different countries without, clearing through those customs or dealing with those customs. It's the same principle there with the U.S. and that comes into Mobile, customs allows it to move what we call in bond. So it's not technically entered into the U.S. yet. It's not cleared into the U.S., but it's moving on up the road on a truck up I-65 to Birmingham, where when it arrives, we'll actually submit to customs locally there, the customs entry, and it will then be cleared through customs.
Interesting.
So those offices, now, of course, Atlanta is a huge international airport.
Yep.
So we do a lot of air freight shipments there. Dallas is the same way. But, the Mobile, the New Orleans, those offices were old. They were there because of primarily for ocean cargo.
Are you ever asked to go put your hands on any of the cargo that you pull in? Does somebody ever say, Bill, I need you to go find container XYZ657, open it up, and make sure this is in there? Do you ever touch the product that you're working with?
Again, containerization changed a lot of that. Back in the old days, we did go down. We would survey, we'd count. We would we did more than just do the customs entry part of it. We had to actually be on site. Nowadays, not really. It's again being that majority of it is containerized. We know an awful lot about it. We know more about the clients imported or exported items, then we know as much almost as they do, but we don't necessarily see it or handle it directly.
Yeah,
that's just not part of our services.
So the unemployment numbers were announced last week or early this week, I forget. Continued record low unemployment. Has that impacted your ability to move product through or get it out?
Well, I think today what we do differently today. I think we're not finding the candidates out there with direct experience. It is a unique industry. When I tell my friends what do I do, I say customs broker, freight forwarder. The Art Vandelay image comes up. What does that mean? Yeah. And so finding candidates out there with direct experience, we probably used to do that. We would hire some people that were in the industry. Maybe they worked for a steamship company, maybe they worked for a trucking company, or they worked directly for another forwarder or broker. I think because the employment rate has dropped, we're really, the last few years, we've just been hiring candidates with aptitude and attitude. And we know that we're going to train them. The learning scale, is really high. It's probably a 6-month to a year investment on our part to get somebody to that point where we feel like they've got the foundation. But that's kind of been our strategy, and it's worked. I mean, we've had a few misses, but for the most part, they start out probably glazed over eyes, not sure what in the world they're getting into. They see it in very fragmented pieces, but about that 6-month point, it really starts to click, and they see it from the big picture.
That's good.
It is a fascinating. What's fascinating for me is that, again, I touched on that before, is that the client base that we have is so diverse. So the industries that we get to know a little bit about, it really is. It's neat. It's unique. It changes from client to client.
And it's a family business. I want to emphasize that again. It's a family business since 1892. The current owners, it's never been public. It's never been outside of a certain lineages, and you're now a part of that. And you've got 3 sons, I think, that I hesitate to ask you whether your sons will be employed by the company. You don't want to get in that slippery slope, but it's kind of cool. I think it's kind of cool. There's a lot of them around here in Mobile, and I'm quite fond of them. I think they have great stories.
Yeah, there's an opportunity if any of them decide they want to join, to come on board. They would be I believe the 5th generation for a family being involved in Page and Jones. So there is a sentimental part of me that does hope at least one of them would want to enter the business. I've actually had all 3 of them working part-time summers and the holidays, in different aspects of it. But it, again, to me, it is an ever-changing, always moving industry. So I don't think there's anything dull about it. It does seem to be a growing industry. So I would not discourage them if they chose to look this way.
That's awesome. Folks, Bill Kraus, Page & Jones. Bill, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Cam. Enjoyed it.
Appreciate it. We'll be right back after this break with final comments. You're listening to What's Working with Cam Marston. What Bill Kraus is talking about requires an extraordinary amount of business administration, and the Coastal Alabama Community College Network offers a degree in business administration. With seated and online courses available, it gives students a basic foundation for business administration, particularly for those that want to transfer to a 4-year university to complete their degree. Contact Coastal Alabama Community College now to learn more.
Is your business growing? Does your existing metal building need an update? Expansion? New roof? With almost 20 years of experience, Mosley Building Systems is the leading metal building contractor along the Gulf Coast. We are your local design build experts. From expansion to new construction or repairs, we can guide you through all aspects of your project. Mosley Building Systems works with each client to fulfill their vision. For more information, go to mosleybuildingsystems.com.
Coastal Alabama Community College is 3 amazing colleges combined into one incredible institution. And that means we're all together. For more sports, 15 more locations, more friends, more one-on-one time with instructors, way more activities, more courses, a lot more courses, and more success for all of us. Pretty much more of everything. Coastal Alabama Community College is where everyone is. All together! Coastal Alabama Community College. Register today.
I want to thank Bill Kraus for his time on the phone today with Page and Jones, giving us some insight into how the product and the cargo rolls across the oceans and the territories and the boundaries and the borders between these countries. I think it's fascinating, and I appreciate Bill for giving us some of his time to get some insight into how all of this stuff works. I can't get enough of this type of stuff. I think it's fascinating. That's the reason for the show. That's the reason I started this show so long ago now, over 80 episodes ago, year and a half ago, because I had these questions that I couldn't answer. I couldn't find anybody that would give me the answer, so I created a radio show that teaches me about the stuff that I've always wanted to know about. Now, I appreciate Bill and his time. Before we go, though, this week, I'm going to relate some stuff that we learned, or rather presented, last week in Kansas City at a conference. This was pretty interesting. It got people thinking. I thought, well, this is worth mentioning on the show. And it's this. So the audience was a group of financial services people, and their question to me was, help us predict the future of our business, Cam, based on what you know about the demographic trends, which I talk about from time to time on this show, customer expectations, demographic trends, technology influences, etc. And we got into that. But it took a turn that was designed to stimulate interest, to stimulate thought. And this is it. There are things in our society that surround us, and I'll give you 3 examples in a moment, that were once old, that we had written off, that have been reinvented and become the interest of the affluent. Whether it's affluence in time or affluence in dollars, either one. There are things that we've seen introduced to our society that we think will knock out the previous version. But the previous version comes back in a unique and elite way. Example number 1, the horse. Back in the day, people rode horses. They were common. The car replaced the horse. People were excited to see the horse go. They're messy. You have to feed them. You have to put them up at night. You have to care for their health, all this kind of stuff. The car comes. People stop by riding horses and choose cars for their transportation, except recently, well, not recently, but the elite, the affluent, those with time on their hands, those with money have horses. If I meet somebody and say, what is your hobby? And I ask them, what is your hobby? And they say, oh, I ride horses. I'm like, oh, there's some money there. The other one, turntables. They went away with the CD. They're coming back. They've been coming back for a while. And you can spend a fortune on these things that we've once thought we'd never see again. The final example is gas lanterns and candles. They went away with electricity. Now you go to a home or an office or a business with a lantern and you think that's kind of nice. What is that item in your business that has gone away that you can bring back? What is that item that says elite to your customers? You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. It's brought to you by Coastal Alabama Community College. I want to thank Kristen Ogden for helping get this show together, and I want to thank our producer, John Thompson with Ion Digital. Have another show for you next week, folks. Have a good week.